All right, happy Saturday, everyone. My next guest today is an icon, really, in the Sacramento area, particularly salsa dancing and dancing in general. He's one of the early teachers in that area as far as salsa. And so, whether you see all of these people dancing, they learn it from Mike Del Campo. Welcome, sir.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Not too much, bro. I mean, this pandemic shit, so I'm doing this shit right now.
It's
I'm
making all of
bored.
us scramble right now. Yeah.
I mean, but ladies and gentlemen, not too many people in our scene is that we know them either by teaching and performing or dancing social, but we don't really know what they do. And Mike here is a long practitioner of the martial arts, particularly in the Wing Chun style, which was Bruce Lee's original, the first martial arts that he ever learned, really. And so one of the things I invited him here, because we can relate a little bit, because I learned Jeet Kune Do, he learned Wing Chun, and we both know that Jeet Kune Do is 50% Wing Chun. So, and so we could relate there. And I'm very impressed with his background because he learned from the old masters of Wing Chun, whether it's in China or Hong Kong. But anyway, how have you been, dude? You still teaching at your studio? Because you're in phase one, right? In California.
Yeah, in the Sacramento area, they let us out for a while to phase 3, where we started doing privates for a while again, and then they shut it down again. So I think they knocked us back to stage 2 now. So
does that mean that you guys can teach with social distancing and mask and all that stuff?
no, they shut down, as far as I know, all indoor non-essential businesses.
That sucks, dude, because you probably rent your studio. You own your studio. You rent it.
Well, I share space with another studio, and the bad thing about it is that we had just moved.
Oh shit!
The first month, right, March, that we're in there, we're already planning our grand opening party, and then we had to shut down. So that's kind of a nightmare.
How's the landlord treating you?
So I'm lucky. I pay my partners, and they deal with the landlord.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully good. They're really, the people I'm with are really awesome people, and so I am still paying them money because they got into a lease expecting to continue business as usual. But they're allowing me to pay a little bit less. So I'm giving them about 2/3 of what I normally give them. And so I am paying for some empty space right now, but it's helping. Eventually we'll get over this and I'll get back in there.
Well, let's hope so, because, if we're actually looking at till the end of the year, that's really bad for studios. I wouldn't doubt that studios will slowly announce that they're closing, I mean, like Allegro, for example. Allegro just moved into Richmond.
Yeah.
This pandemic happens and they don't own that place. They're renting it, So
yeah, it's a real disaster for the dance world, and it's probably going to take us a while to recover from it. And
well, not to mention martial arts studios as well. I mean,
oh yeah.
How are these MMA studios faring well? Because especially if you're in phase 2, you can't work out. There's just no way,
Right.
So, and of course, there's fights, UFC fight every Saturday, and as you can tell, there's no audience there.
Yeah. Well, I see now that the NFL is ramping up too, and they got enough money to where they could do things pretty safely. This is America, so they're gonna at least have professional football. I hear they're canceling college seasons,
really?
But they're trying to go with professional football, so they're in training camps right now. So we'll see how that does.
Oh man. Well, no social dancing as much, but you still practice martial arts? You still do it?
Yeah. Normally I'd be wrapping up too. I usually go and do travel sometimes to do seminars, and I usually have an annual one in Tennessee. One of my students who has a big following down there named Trevor Haynes. He does school in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I usually go there one weekend in September or November and do a 4-day seminar. So, but not this year. But I try and stay in shape. with this pandemic, if there's a good thing about it, it makes you realize what you missed. Being in the dance world and martial arts, sometimes you can get, I don't know, overwhelmed. You know, it can kind of get old hat, and then you lose it, and you start thinking about, man, you know, I wasn't doing what I could really be doing, and that I need to. It's good. It makes you refocus. So if there's anything positive, when we come back, man, I'm going to even be dancing the merengue. I'll be out there on the merengues.
That's the thing about bachata or merengue, man. It's brutal to my lower back when I really do it. If you haven't done it in a long time, it's brutal, dude. It's like,
Ouch.
yeah, it's just it's terrible. But speaking of martial arts here, I'm glad you're still practicing. For me, it's my relationship with martial art is on and off because I can't get into different things at the same time. You know, if I get into bachata, I get into bachata. If I get into bodybuilding, which I'm in now, I get into bodybuilding and there's nothing else. You know, it's like it's a laser focus. And so when I get back, the only things that I do really now is just the martial arnis sticks. Mm-hmm. It's all on my forearms and hand. That's all I'm training. I do siniwali and all of that stuff. That's pretty much it. But when it comes to punching the bag, I don't have that unless they have a gym here somewhere that I could do it at. But no, in my martial arts days, bro, it was 90% sparring, dude.
Well, when I first started in martial arts, I was pretty much single-minded too. Yeah, it was something that actually became basically my identity. That's how I related to who I was, and I didn't miss a practice for 10 years. But the thing is, I mean, even to the point of not dating, it was crazy.
True. That is true.
And back in the 70s and 80s when I was training, you know, there was not as many women as you see that are getting encouraged today.
Oh, there were some good-looking women there that were black belts, and and I would spar with them. They would literally kick my ass, but I'm holding back. I don't know. It's a natural thing. I just cannot. It's hard for me to go full-blown and hit a woman. It's just, even if I have gloves, you know. And they always kick my balls because, you know, Campo, we're concentrated on the balls.
You guys are good at that. That's part against a lot of Campo people, yeah.
So let's talk about Bruce Lee for a minute because, you know, he died a long time ago, yet he's still alive. That makes sense, right?
It's amazing.
Big influence in the martial arts. I mean, if you think about it, you got the movie Yip Man, right? And it's featured, you know, it's featured the Grandmaster. Yet they still mention Bruce Lee there. You know, I was like, what the hell? You know? Did you watch all the 4 series?
Yeah.
Did you watch all of the? Did you watch all the Yip Man movie? Because there are others.
I saw one that kind of went on a weird tangent with him and some other lady, and kind of lost interest.
The Grandmaster.
Yeah, that was kind of a strange
with Tony Leung, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, what really made me happy about that is it put Wing Chun on the map. Even though Bruce Lee, it was his first. People never saw. They saw Jeet Kune Do, but they didn't see Wing Chun.
Yeah,
and really, you know, the forms are so boring, so there was not even a lot of interest. But then when you actually got to see Donnie Yen performing it and some of those things like that.
I still do Shulam Tao, you know, every now and then.
Yeah.
It's as boring as Tai Chi, but that's okay.
Right. And but even, you know, my student base grew after those Yip Man movies because of the interest. So that's a positive. And
it's a very good concept. The center line theory is a very good concept when it comes to fighting, specifically street fight, where you don't waste a fucking time, dude. You can't get fancy in a street fight. You got, you know, the economy of motion makes sense. The center line theory makes sense in a street fight because you wanna end it quickly, you know.
Definitely. You know, my first style of martial arts, I knew I wanted to get into Kung Fu because I saw Bruce Lee beating up everybody else in the white gis. So, but I didn't know what I was getting into. So I found a Kung Fu school that was Tai Chi, Praying Mantis type of, more of a traditional Chinese martial art.
Was it there in Sacramento? Did you live in Sacramento?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was in Sacramento in the 70s. It was a great teacher, guy by the name of Tree. He was from Vietnam, and he trained from the grandmaster of that style. But he's also very versatile too. He was into judo, aikido, and tai chi. So they call it the Budo Educational Center.
Okay,
And
that's good. That makes sense.
I'm really happy about that because I got a little bit of a grappling background before I got into Wing Chun from that studio in terms of the aikido, the judo that I used to do. And then the Tai Chi Praying Mantis has a lot of leg locking and arm bar type stuff too, which it wasn't very too combat effective by just doing that. But after I got into Wing Chun and was able to approach it more direct, some elements are pretty pragmatic and can work. So
yeah.
It's
the thing that many people forget that Bruce Lee style, if you analyze it, the foundation is Wing Chun. There's no doubt about it. You could see that in all of his techniques. And even Danny Nosanto, who was his #1 student, he said, it's 50% Wing Chun. It's really 50%. Everything else, you see Sabat there, you see judo, you see Western boxing, you see some certain locks and whatnot. And so he makes it all. Jeet Kune Do is basically the first MMA, if you think about it. Not too many people know that. You know?
And that's how we used to spar. You know, I learned Wing Chun in a garage. We didn't have a formal studio. It was just a bunch of guys. We found their teacher from Hong Kong. And turns out that's how a lot of Wing Chun schools are, you know. They're garage schools or what have you. And, but Jeet Kune Do is Wing Chun theory, which that's a good thing about Wing Chun. You want to talk about Wing Chun, you want to talk about the theory. But it's also good you mentioned Bruce Lee because theory versus tradition, right? And that's a thing that can either help martial arts or hold it back. And, you know, we were talking about this clip earlier. You see a lot of these guys in Wing Chun. The bad thing about Wing Chun now, and like a lot of martial arts, if they hold on to tradition too much, they lose fact of what's really happening with street fighting. People just stay in their own studio and do chi sao, sticking hands. You don't get a real idea for what real actual fighting is. I was very lucky that my first teacher, Alex Wong, here in the United States, had learned Wing Chun, but he had also had some different stuff. And so he was into the same Bruce Lee thing where, you know, he was moving around. We were using a lot of boxing and Muay Thai footwork and stuff like that. And that was invaluable because I think Bruce Lee went through the same thing. He got to this country, pretty much traditional Wing Chun. He started seeing karate, judo, boxing, and other things here, and started to change his philosophy a little bit on what he wanted to do with it.
The thing is that when Bruce Lee was developing Jeet Kune Do, and of course we both know that he didn't start developing that until he had that fight with a fellow Chinese martial artist.
Yeah, Wang Jackman.
Yeah, Wang Jackman. You know, he thought he could take him quickly, but he wasn't able to, although he won that fight, but he wasn't able to do it quickly. And he was very disappointed, and thereby developing or adjusting more and refining more of what his style was. And according to Danny Nosanto, every month he keeps changing the structure until he got it right.
Right.
We're talking every month, dude. And then you spar with someone, it's like, that doesn't work. Let me change it, you know.
Which is, you know, when you break away from martial arts tradition, I mean, you make a lot of enemies.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a no-no back then. You know, MMA is convincing a lot of people and opening people's eyes right now.
Well, yeah, because, you know, MMA, you would think in the old days it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Right.
Every fight ends up in the ground. No, that's no longer the case, dude.
That's true.
You cannot claim that anymore. It doesn't always end up in the ground, you know?
Right.
Because
But the thing is, you know, being well-rounded, right? You see some people are better at striking, some people better at grappling. And it's funny, now I'm seeing a lot of traditional martial arts technique end a lot of fights, like the front kick right to the chin. And
That's
a lot of people won't
that's a
expect
Wing Chun technique.
Yeah.
It's called the leap kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a circle of things, but if you close yourself off, if you hold yourself to just a particular single type of thinking or structure, it's not conducive to combat. I mean, progressive combat tactics, even militarily, always change, and fighting's the same way. When these styles were formulated, there was no libraries, there was no YouTube, there was no you were lucky to find a teacher, and it was very secretive.
There were
And
books.
so,
The problem with reading the books is you don't see them moving, so you
right.
don't have any 100% idea on how the move feels and whatnot. There was no video.
Definitely. You saw one picture, then you see the next picture, but in between there and there is the whole essence of the technique. So
let's talk about this. Let's talk about this guy not in Hong Kong, in China. Xu Xiaodong was fighting a Wing Chun master in, I don't know whether it's in Shanghai or Beijing, Ding Hao. And so this guy is known, Xu Xiaodong is known for being an MMA fighter and trainer, but he's known for disrespecting traditional martial arts in China, whether it's Tai Chi or Wing Chun or any other styles. And so his aim is to be able to expose them as fake. And so far he's been succeeding that. My opinion of this, because I just, from time to time I would watch his fight, and he would even expose his face here to get hit, and he doesn't get hurt and whatnot. This latest fight that I sent you a video there. 80% of the time, the Wing Chun master did it right. He got all of the strikes there. The offensive, he's got all strike in the face. The only problem with that I see was the defensive part. Once you get punched and you do this, you don't look anymore, that's it. It's done. Wing Chun practitioner does not do that. Number one. And number two, my analysis, and I'm sure you're going to do your analysis. That was my number one analysis, like this, okay? Number two analysis, he was not on the defensive. If he could only, at least at the moment, did some defensive, then the power would really, that right there, instead of going forward like this, that doesn't hurt, bro. It might bleed you, but the moment you put your torque body like this, that there's power there, he could have, Xu Xiaodong could have been knocked out because he exposed himself and he can use his strength against him, So that's two of my analysis. And the third is he was not training for MMA, for a fight. That's a difference. Right. This guy trains for a fight brutally, just like they train in boxing all year round. This guy is just, maybe his training is just instructing his students.
Right, he's a casual athlete. Yeah, exactly.
Your take.
There are a lot of videos like that with, I'll quote masters. I don't like that word master.
Yeah.
But where they try to apply a traditional type of approach to a modern situation. And again, they're not trained fighters, so that's a disadvantage already. Half of being a fighter is being in shape, and Bruce Lee used to talk about that. So if you're gonna fight, but train to fight. You see a lot of these Wing Chun guys stand like this, right? Like, I don't know if you can see my hands.
Yeah, I can see your hand.
And that's guarding the center line right away. But most of the time when you fight somebody outside of your studios, they're not going to attack the center line. So a lot of these guys don't know how to hold their hands up. They don't know about head movement. They don't, their footwork is too rooted.
Yeah.
They don't have mobility, and they don't understand a lot of the concepts. Also, you see a lot of these guys, like you said, they get the opening, but since they're not used to sparring a lot, he jammed himself up.
Yes. Yes.
So there's no power there, and he was doing stuff too quickly. He wasn't trapping and grabbing the hands and bringing it down and exposing more. He wasn't sticky. he had just tried to get in through a small opening and moved too far in and jammed himself up. So just so many mistakes you see right off the bat from these non-trained fighters. And you can tell they don't have a lot of sparring experience, and particularly not a lot of sparring experience outside their studio.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just the fact that the first fight, the intro of the fight, he is doing this position already. Why would you do that?
Yeah, right.
Why would you reveal your weapon right away?
Exactly. And guarding a line that is not necessarily threatened already.
Yeah.
So so again, if you're sparring against guys in your studio, yeah, fine. But and that's the big knock on Wing Chun right now with the traditional guys wanting to hold on to that. And I see there's a lot of videos like that. A lot of these Wing Chun guys, same thing. They try and fight an athlete. They're not training to fight. They're doing chi sao, in their practices, and then they're thinking that's going to carry over to a street fighting situation. I remember I used to travel to go to all different schools, and usually when I got hit, it wasn't a technique that was necessarily superior to what I was doing, but it was something I hadn't seen.
Yeah.
Something I wasn't familiar with. And that's how you learn, and so yeah, you see a lot of these mistakes and you just shake your head, and I don't mind. Some of my teachers said, well, it's good that some of these guys get exposed, because then the stronger schools will survive and the weaker schools fold.
Also, with those mistakes, I think that's probably the only way they can learn and change.
Yeah, true.
Adjust certain things for their own style. Because if you, being familiar with Kung Fu concepts is absorb what is useful, reject what is useless. And so when that happens, you adjust it according to your own style, because you are built differently. I am built differently.
Right.
What might work for me well might not work for you. A sidekick for me might really work well, and for you maybe a roundhouse kick. I don't know.
Right.
So it depends on how we're built and which are strongest. That's the only thing I don't like about that scene right there in China, where this guy is trying to prove everyone that they're stupid and fake. But you got to pick your own type of, you're picking you're actually picking the weak people, the weak
right
there,
right,
which is to your advantage, But look, if we look at MMA right now, if we look at MMA, there are 3 distinct fighters that are successfully using Wing Chun techniques.
Really? Okay.
Tony Ferguson, you got to watch out for him. He does Wing Chun technique. John Jones, of course, I think he's still undefeated. Okay, John Jones and Anderson Silva, those 3 use Wing Chun techniques very successfully. You could tell their blocks like this and everything. They block just about every strike, and then you go like that, and then elbow. I was like, damn, that works well,
Yeah, there's a lot of good Wing Chun fighters around. I mean, I had the opportunity to go train in Hong Kong back in 1985, way back, right, when it was still part of British province. And I thought I was going to go show those little Chinese guys how us Americans do it. We had about 30, 40, 50 pounds on these guys. And the first 2 weeks they threw us around easily. So they showed us that we didn't really have a real good understanding of our foundation. And some of these guys were tough. Wing Chun has a reputation for fighting, especially when they made the reputation in Hong Kong. A lot of these rooftop fights. Everybody knows Yip Man as Bruce Lee's teacher, but he really wasn't Bruce Lee's. Didn't work with him most. The guy is a fourth student of Yip Man named Wang Sunlong, who is Bruce Lee's real teacher at Yip Man's school.
It's true. Yeah.
So when you go to the school, you say Yip Man, yeah, my teacher, but he learned from Bruce Lee's Yip Man's fourth student named Wang Sunlong. And these guys, there's some tough guys there, and they weren't doing this.
No.
They were changing up their stances. They had an understanding of how to have a strong center and not a strong stance. In fact, they told us, don't even think about the word stance. It's not it's not good. It doesn't. It means you're stationary and not fluid. All those concepts. So, I consider myself very fortunate. It was very eye-opening to see this. And, you know, Bruce Lee had that chance when in reverse, he came here and opened his eyes to seeing the different things. And the same thing for when I went there. And I think that's what martial arts people really need. If you're gonna, have a base and then go on and see what works for you. Just like Bruce Lee said, see what works for you. If it helps, incorporate it. If not, don't waste time with it. And you know, what's funny is, as I age and I get older, my theory and my tactics change according to what I can do, even age-wise. Right?
Me too. Me too. In my younger days, I was known for my kicks in the competition arena, and they would think I'm a Taekwondo practitioner, but no, because if you would have seen my kicks in the old days, it was all snaps. It was not from the rear leg when I kick, as opposed to Taekwondo, because it was most of my kicks I learned from Bill Wallace.
Nice, Superfoot.
Yeah, Superfoot. You know, and I got that concept from him, and then ever since then, that's what I use in the competition, because at that point, you know, point fighting, you know, we're like 80% force in the face. You know, it's either 1 inch or just tap. Everything else in the body is 100%. You know, and I met this guy who I used to go to a Protestant church called Church of the Open Door. And I used to be a worship leader. FYI, guys, yes, I used to be a worship leader. And every Sunday after church, when everybody else is gone, we have a room there where we could practice martial arts. And this guy, William Ibona from the military, was a student of Chris Chan. I don't know, a Chris Chan from the Bay Area, Wing Chun. Wing Chun guy, his name is Chris Chan.
I've heard of him.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so he was one of the senior students there. And so William and I, it's like, look, you're a Wing Chun guy, I'm a Campo guy. Let's see how, you know, if it works or not. And so we had 5 rounds. He got all of the points. He would, the moment I move, straight glass right away. Okay, shit. You know, the moment I lift my knee, straight blast. The guy just turned towards me. He's like, how the fuck am I gonna defend this? I only got him twice. Lead side kick, where I lean and just kick, because he was like this is open. I was like, I know where to get, you know. And so lead side kick is like, oh, he was surprised. And then the next part is the spinning back kick, which broke his rib, bro. He won the competition by points, but I broke his rib. We never sparred again. But after that sparring, I respected Wing Chun. And I started learning the basics.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. You know, you get exposed to things, and again, you can get hit with things that you're not familiar with. What's funny is I went to a Shotokan studio, had some friends there, and their thing is 1 punch, 1 kill. You know, they work on this.
My background, hey, bro, my first black belt, my background, that's my background. My background is Shorin Ryu.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know,
okay.
Yeah. 1 punch, 1 kill.
So I was coming in and doing the same mistake as rushing in too fast, and they would just block and hit me with a reverse punch, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not familiar with that, but it's a simple technique, right? Yeah. And then finally I said, oh, okay, Ganda, okay. But it took a while to process, right? So, like I said, it doesn't even have to be a superior technique as it is something you're not familiar with. And then you become familiar with it. I remember then I went to a friend's Taekwondo school. And it's interesting that you mentioned Bill Wallace.
Yeah.
Because not a lot of traditional Taekwondo people always lead with the lead leg like a jab, like he did. You know, they go back and forth with the legs and stuff like that and spin. But there was a good guy here in Sacramento named Clint Robinson, and he's still teaching. And his fighters all fight like that too, with that same leg, and they keep you at bay and stuff like that. So this guy would set me up with a low side kick and then come up with what I call a hook kick. Yeah. And I wasn't used to seeing a kick come at that angle. So, you know, he put his foot on my face a couple times, and then I'm like, okay. So I went and learned how to do the technique. Yeah. And then figured out what the weakness is. And so that's how you build. And You know, like I said, I spent all my youth doing that to the point of fanaticism. I was single dimensional. If we weren't talking about martial arts, I didn't have anything to talk about.
I mean, you know, I like the part that you're not strictly on one martial arts. You adjust accordingly, which is, you know, the very concept of Jeet Kune Do. It's
Right.
You adjust accordingly, and I like that idea because that one punch, one kill thing. I learned so much from that because the moment you punch somebody right in the rib and it didn't work, you don't have you don't have a second plan B, dude. The moment you think of plan B, it's over. You already got hit. You know? And that's when I got attracted to Campo, because it could adjust accordingly. It has a lot of it's both hard, you know, they claim it's both hard and soft style, you know, as opposed to Japanese style, which is just hard. Wing Chun.
So are you Parker or Mitosi? What's your background, Parker or Mitosi? Hard and soft?
Huh?
I'm sorry, I was asking a question. Are you Ed Parker or Mitosi background on the Campo?
Ralph Castro, which is technically Ed Parker.
Okay. Yeah. So I got a friend that trained from Ralph Castro too, back in the 60s and 70s. Yeah. So Castro's been around a long time, very famous.
Ralph Castro knew my instructor, John Pereira, who was a Shirin-Ryu teacher in the Bay Area. And so when I went to Ralph Castro, he accepted me already as a black belt. So that was a good transition for me. Yeah.
Wow.
But after that, most of this style that I learned are long range, okay? Wing Chun is short range, as you know, it's close in fighting, right?
Yes, definitely.
Because I use my kick a lot, I consider it long range. Do you know why? Because I'm afraid to get hit. I don't like getting hit. Fuck, I don't like getting hit, dude. If nobody I did, I want to get into boxing. If I want to get, I don't want to get hit. But ever since that Wing Chun practitioner, dude, I needed to learn how to do infighting. I needed to learn how to be able to defend myself if I'm with this opponent distance instead of this. Because eventually you have to get to this to finish the opponent, you know. And so I got into Filipino martial arts, which was more infighting and all of that stuff. And it's still the same as Jeet Kune Do concept. You know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that you know, that's the thing. So many elements. The funny thing with Wing Chun, you can't apply Wing Chun in distance. So if I'm 2 or 3 feet away from you, I can't apply my Wing Chun. Well,
you have the front kick.
Most of it, yeah. So then you're applying tactics and footwork and stuff like that, and what they call bridging the gap. But for the most part, Wing Chun is good when you have contact. Once you establish contact, then the Wing Chun takes over. And again, that's why a lot of these traditional guys get knocked out, is they come in unguarded, guarding a center line that may not be threatened. And so they don't have enough fighting experience to know, hey, I might have to keep my hands here. I might have to here. I might have to move my head and shoulders a little bit. So you see a lot of mistakes made in distance from Wing Chun. But if they can get contact, a lot of guys are going to be okay. Some guys, again, get too excited and jam themselves up. Yeah. But for the most part, you know, the distance thing is the key. Now, being comfortable inside is, like you said, it's a real advantage, because when I got inside on the karate guys and the taekwondo guys, they were very uncomfortable. They were very uncomfortable, and you know, would either try and spin or just move away. And a lot of the technique was, the mistakes that I saw them make was like you were talking about, the one-step type of technique where they would throw and then stop.
Yeah.
And then they would stop, and they would stop without moving. They would stop, but they would still be in distance for counterattack. And so I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good for us. So different things, different martial arts stress different things, and they have their weaknesses too. So it is fun and exciting. I wish more guys would just get together and share concepts and work out, because that was some of my funnest times learning.
The center line theory, can you get out of it?
Oh yeah, because you know it's the most misunderstood. It's the most popular theory of Wing Chun, but it's the most misunderstood, and even by Wing Chun practitioners. So I want to back up again. I don't. You'll probably lose me on audio, but
No, we good. We good.
a lot of guys will squeeze their elbow in and their hand, so everything's pinched on a center line.
Right.
And that's not the key. Now the center line theory is basically an imaginary line, the shortest distance between you and an opponent. What stays in the center is your hands, relatively.
Right.
But the elbows hang at your natural body width, so that when you lift the hand, you have a wedge of protection.
Right.
And then that's a bong sao and a tang sao. Again, these will come into play once you have contact. But outside of contact, your elbow should not be squeezed in. Or, again, both hands on the center.
Right.
Because you can see the openings on either side, especially for a hook punch. So there's a lot of mistakes or a lot of things that getting together with other people, sparring against other people will teach you, and it'll teach you some of the weaknesses in your own system. It's very eye-opening. Bruce Lee was such a pioneer because he did it at a time when you weren't supposed to do it. He got a lot of flack from his own culture.
He did.
He had to fight. He had to fight.
Even from Yip Man, he got a lot of flack.
Yeah. And but it started a revolution. And like you said, his concept of sparring with all the gear, that's how we sparred. We sparred with the chest protector and the headgear, those 5-finger gloves, and those baseball catcher shin protectors. So, you know, that's how we would go full contact. That's invaluable. If you're going to fight, you got to practice fighting.
Bro, when you started your martial arts, because I started when I was like in my teen years, 13, 14, did you experience racism? Because I did. Chinese wouldn't teach me. Chinese wouldn't teach me. Chinese wouldn't teach. My very first instructor was Y.C. Wong, Hungar.
Oh, yeah. He's famous here in Sacramento, too.
Oh, Hungar. He had this studio in Clay Street in San Francisco, underground. You go there, underground. So, you know, I was walking one time, I was like, oh, Y.C. Wong Kung Fu. Sounds good, you know. I went downstairs, and he was doing Tai Chi at that time. And then everybody was just practicing, all of them Chinese, of course. And I was just sitting there, no hello, no nothing. All right. So I left. Second day, I went again. And he looked at me as like, that was the acknowledgement. The fifth day, he actually said hello.
But I don't know if that's racism as much as
I don't think it was racism. It was much of what the powers that be at that time, that they don't want to teach foreigners, you know?
I see.
Yeah. But I was Filipino, so I think I was close enough that he accepted me as a student. I mean, look at my eyes, man, except I'm brown, but what the hell, you know? That's when I learned the very foundation of horse stance. They have the deepest horse stance ever, man. That's where I developed my legs. But that was my intro to Chinatown. And I experienced the very reason where Bruce Lee and the powers that be argued that they should teach foreigners.
Right. You know, traditionally, a lot of martial arts schools are very standoffish to people coming in anyway. That's their filter. And then not only that, then you start the training and they don't start you on much but stances, and that's another filter.
It's true.
Right? They want to see if you're going to stick with it.
They want to test you, dude.
Right. And so they put you through kind of a hazing type of thing. And that's the way they do it. I was lucky. My first teacher was Vietnamese.
Oh, okay.
And he learned in Vietnam, that he went to France, you know, because of that history. And so he was well-rounded and he didn't trip that much, although he had, the thing with Kung Fu schools is there's no structure in the classes.
Yeah.
There's a time that the studio opens, say 4 o'clock to 10 o'clock. You show up whenever, you go over your forms and whatever you're doing. And if the teacher thinks it's time to take you on, they'll take you on. If not, you know, you work with other students or what have you, but you know, you don't know where you are. And sometimes a teacher will go without talking to you in a whole month, you know, and usually our guy, he would only come when you were messing up. So you got really nervous when he came by. So, but yeah, so that's, there wasn't a lot of structure. They're very standoffish about new people too. They want to have a filter so that they, you know, because it is such a gift. They believe it is such a gift that they don't want to just give it out to anybody. So I got a good story for you.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Didajo?
Yes.
Right.
I usually apply that after competition when I get injured.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what it is, it's a Chinese liniment that you make, and you have to have these ingredients. And Wing Chun is big on using it. Got a lot of bruises. So we sent one of our guys, but he was non-Asian, to Chinatown with the list of the ingredients written in Chinese. They wouldn't sell it to him. they told him they didn't even have it. They acted like they didn't know what he was talking about, right? Same list a week later, we sent one of our Asian guys over there, comes back with all the stuff. So, you know, it's a cultural thing, you know?
I think it's a cultural thing, but then also they wanted to be superior, meaning they don't want to reveal their secret because there were a lot of racism against Chinese at that time.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's their edge. They don't want to lose it.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that in the 60s or 40s or 50s, that was the case. And you could tell that the way Bruce Lee was acting. And even when he, you know, I think there was this, he had a pilot, he had a series developed, and that was then published by his daughter recently. I think that was last year. I saw the series that was, you know, originally developed by Bruce Lee, and it was all about racism against Chinese in the 1950s in San Francisco, Chinatown.
Yeah, and I'm sure he would have been aware of it, and for him to keep going and not let that get him down, and to keep going and come back, it's real tragic that he died so soon, because he was just breaking into the market. And
I think he would have kept refining, bro. To my opinion, he would have kept refining his style.
The world was robbed.
Yeah, he could have kept refining it. But anyhow, what is the one that you valued the most when you were just beginning in training?
You know, when I first got into it, I didn't even have a concept of what it really was, other than just seeing what it was in the movies. And so, like I said, the first time I got into it, I joined a very traditional studio. We got into low horse dances, just a lot of traditional acrobatic type training. And I didn't know what it was doing for me at the time, but what it was making my legs really strong and getting me in heck of shape. But the most important thing that happened to me at that time was I was pretty much lost before I got into martial arts. I was thin. I grew up with allergies and asthma. I got picked on in junior high and high school. So I came with a very low, crestfallen type of view on life. But when I got into martial arts, it changed all that. You get the confidence, and introduction to Eastern philosophy is really one of the things that I really appreciate. The Western way of thinking, approach to combat, approach to life, the philosophy with life, Tao, Zen, all that stuff. And so that has made me more rich than even the actual techniques, is the outlook on things. And so
how much do you apply Sun Tzu's strategy in life in general? Do you apply?
Yeah, that you can do that, and you can apply it to combat. Sun Tzu talked more about in terms of armies,
warfare.
But it's and then Musashi too, with the Book of Five Rings.
Musashi, yes.
Strategies. So it's very interesting, because you see the tactics. If you go back to the Vietnam War, on the mistakes that, well, the French before us and then the United States military trying to fight an enemy that wouldn't fight them head on. Right? And so you just see all these things. Again, it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at America, they look at Arnold Schwarzenegger and they think, you know, oh, this is in good shape, but it does look good. But in the East, they value more of the gymnastic type of a build, that type of thing with the flexibility and the sinew. So it's just different ways of thinking that you know, that I was introduced to, which gave me a philosophy of more of a Zen type of approach. I started reading about it and stuff like that. So it's really helped not only with martial arts but dancing and life in general.
Yeah. What's the value of Chisao? Okay, the sensitivity drills.
So Chisao, for those of you who don't know, it's a Wing Chun hand sensitivity exercise. It's actually, it encompasses more than that. It's a body and intention exercise.
Yeah.
Where you have contact with a partner, you roll hands, and you basically learn how to create exposed openings, trap, to strike or count coup without getting hit back.
Yeah.
And also you learn how to incorporate two hands simultaneously. One of the progressive Wing Chun things is that it's simultaneous block and strike. So you see instead of block and then punch, you see the same thing happening so that the opponent doesn't have time to react. As soon as they punch, they're getting blocked and hit at the same time. So Chisao teaches us to be able to flow into those openings and then to maintain control. And so it helps the Wing Chun that once they get in contact to dominate.
It also helps you determine the intent of
yes,
the person on the other side.
Exactly.
And that's where I'm getting at, where if you think about follow and lead in dancing, it makes a lot of sense, don't you think?
Yes, yes. So the ladies' part is more like martial arts to me because they are reactive.
Yeah.
And then the leaders are proactive.
Yes.
And so when I first got into martial arts, to dancing from martial arts, I thought, well, I'm going to ace this because I think I'm very coordinated. But in martial arts, we train not to telegraph.
That's true. That's true.
And all of a sudden, I'm having to telegraph. And so it took me a while. And I remember when I switched from Thai matches to Wing Chun, my teacher said, in order to learn from me, are you going to empty your cup of tea? And I'm like, what does that mean? And he says, if your cup is already full of tea, how are you going to taste my tea? And I'm like, I got to remember this. I can't judge dancing to what martial arts is. I can't compare it right away, because then the minute we start comparing, it's another Zen philosophy thing. The minute you start comparing something to something in your past, you stop actually observing it for what it is.
Yeah.
And you just go back to what you know. And so I had to get away from that and look at dancing for what it was. So my martial arts didn't help my dancing right away. It was after a point where I got into it and understood it more, then it started to help.
But it did. You know, I'm on the same boat as you as far as learning the basics in the dancing, and not really comparing to martial art per se. But once you've grown and you became a teacher, guess how that relates to martial arts? 100% when it comes to dancing, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like,
well, and then all the things come into play, you know. For salsa bachata, right? The guys that get in trouble, the guys that just try and lead with the arms.
Yeah.
Instead of lead from their center, from their core. And so all those concepts help. You know, with martial arts, you learn to incorporate your whole body. Well, in leading, the guys should exude that to the partner too. And then the ladies create this, whether it's dance or connection, to be able to feel that. And so that's when the martial arts starts to come into play again, especially with the Wing Chun and the Chisao and all these things, that it really helps, like you mentioned earlier.
Now, recently someone asked me why Wing Chun have weird stances. And you could correct me if I'm wrong. I told them this. You do know that the person who developed this, founded and created this martial arts was a nun, a female.
Yes. Yes.
And
There's been some controversy about that.
I know. So let's discuss it.
Okay. But I think those guys that are raising issue are pretty much male centric. Because you look at the technique, guys would not have thought of the technique that is in Wing Chun.
Yeah.
For instance, with the relaxed elbow, you see a lot of Western where they're all on the shoulders, they're turning over, they're using the upper body a lot.
Right.
Whereas in Wing Chun, you're using your hips and your ankles so that the whole body generates force, and that's how you can get force even in a 1-inch punch.
Right.
And so guys would not have come up with this, especially also of relaxation and shifting and absorbing. And that's not a guy concept. You know?
And the male-centric guys will never come up to that stance with the both knees are in, bro. Come on.
Right. And that, again, that's another misunderstood concept. And it's funny because you see some practitioners go overboard with it. I've seen schools where the guys actually have the guys hold a tennis ball with their knees. And all that makes them good at doing is holding a tennis ball with their knees. That's not the concept. The concept is, if you can see me here, it's a predisposition for being able to shift. That's all it is. So Wing Chun, really, traditional Wing Chun, they don't believe in the word stance at all.
Interesting.
They believe in, rather than a strong stance, they have a strong center where the body is moving centered. And so whether you're standing, whether you're in combat, however you do, you move through intention, and then you have to study how to let the spine and your center do the movement. So it's intention rather than thinking about stepping, which again, in dancing, we do the same way. We start thinking about the step rather than the intention behind it. It takes a while to tie the two together. But again, there's a lot of misunderstandings in martial arts and even in the different styles.
I mean, there's so many misunderstandings. And one of the things that I get annoyed from time to time is that when people are learning certain system of martial arts, even learning a certain system of dance, whether it's on two or on one, whether it's bachata, whether it's sensual, or whether it's traditional, is that they don't have the effort and the time to research what they're learning, to get to know what they're learning, the roots and all of that stuff. They're just absorbing whatever it is that they, just absorbing instead of searching, what is it that make this technique work? How did it originate? All those type of things. I don't know why most people don't do that. I mean,
I think it's a generational thing, Rodney, because it always helps to be what you're talking about, is being a student of the game. Yeah. Understanding the deepest parts of it. And that takes time. It takes finding a good teacher. But now there's so much information at fingertips that it's accessible, so people take shortcuts. But they don't, right? But they don't have the understanding. You talk about Bruce Lee pointing the finger to the moon, and people are looking at the finger. They're just seeing the pattern without seeing what's behind it. And I think our jobs, even with video and stuff like that, you still need a teacher right there with you to be able to see things and to adjust things. And even though we have to do our jobs online right now, but hopefully we can get back to that. So I think it's, back in our day, right, we had to take notes, we had to find books, look in Black Belt magazine to see articles, and, we had to, and we actually had to go to different schools and different teachers and get this research and this knowledge. And it helps because it's the foundation. It's giving you an understanding of what the roots come from. And even though you can modify and build on it, you have to have some type of foundation. If the foundation's weak, then the building falls, no matter what's going to happen. And so you see that in dancing, you see it in martial arts. people like to shoot to the 36 chamber right away, right? They like to go right to the advanced stuff right away without putting in the time to get that foundation. And you know, some people have a lot of ability and can do that. You know, can watch a video and get good. And then some people, like me, you know, need a lot of repetition.
So let's get down to books, because I know you're a reader. What's your top 5 martial art books? And I'll give you mine also.
Okay. Wow, martial arts books. Instructional or just philosophical or story?
Both.
Okay, well, Dao Chi Kundo and then Bruce Lee's fighting series. He had like 4 volumes. Those are right up there, right?
So that's
you gotta
two.
have those.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the titles, but I've read a lot of books about boxing, fencing, and things like that.
Yeah.
Non-martial arts books, but good stories. It's actually an older book called Shike, S-H-I-K-E.
Japanese.
It's a 2-part volume, and it talks about so much about the philosophy and the mindset of combat. It's an amazing book, and it's one of those books where you read over and over, you get something out of it each time. You have to go online to get it. In fact, I went online, got a volume, and then I lost it. But that's a good one. And then there's another book called Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Have you heard that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's by a guy actually in Berkeley, out of Berkeley. He was a gymnast in Berkeley.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, and he writes about meeting a mysterious teacher at a gas station. You know, he doesn't know the guy's a teacher right away.
Wow.
And
That's
that's a life-changing book too.
Yeah.
So I like those books. And then there's the actual there's a life story. It's a biography on Musashi by a guy named Yoshikawa, Eiichi Yoshikawa. It's about Musashi's life. Right. It tells some of the stories. And one of my favorite stories is out of that book. If you have time, I'll relate it to you. You know, back in Japan, where the samurai used to go, you know, some of these swordsmen would go to different provinces and challenge other famous swordsmen to match, to see how it was. And Musashi was doing that. And he's going to this famous swordsman's castle, and he gets beaten there by somebody else, a different swordsman. And the guy gets there first, and he says, I'm here to challenge your master. Would you please send for him? So the attendant goes to find the master, and he's in his garden. And the master's like, man, I'm tired of all these guys challenging me. I'm done with this. And so what he does, he takes out his sword and he cuts off a branch off his plant, and he sends it back with the lady. Says, this is my answer. So the lady comes back with the swordsman and shows him the plant. And the guy says, that's his answer? He says, I come all this way to challenge this great master, and he sends me a plant. Well, I've wasted my time. I'm leaving, and he goes. And then he passes Musashi on the way in, and Musashi says, I'm here to see your master. And the lady says, oh, God. So he goes back. And there's another attendant, and Musashi sees the plant, and he sees the branch, and he says, where did that plant come from? And the lady says, well, that's from our master's garden. And he said, it is. And he tells her, please give your master my apologies. I'm not ready for him. I will be back soon.
Wow. Wow.
So it's a matter of where you are in your training to be able to see things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so one guy couldn't see the technique, but Musashi was at a point to where he could see, wait, that cut was made by a master. I can recognize that, and I know I'm not ready. One of my favorite stories.
Man, that's a great story, dude. I love Eastern philosophy stories like that, where there's always, I mean, you know, we call that in the Bible parables, but you know, those like, it has great lessons and whatnot. We agree in one thing. The number one spot for me is the Tao of Jeet Kune Do, for sure. I mean, for fucking sure, you know. And then you got Art of War, and then you got Book of Five Rings.
Yes, good stuff.
I would put the very first Chuck Norris book there, The Secret of Inner Strength.
Oh, really?
I like the I like the idea of biography where he tells you where he was starting, his struggles, and how he came
Interesting.
out of it. And it, 90% of it is martial arts, of course. And then probably the fifth one, it would have to be a book called Power. It's this thick. It's not really a martial arts book, but it's called Power. On every chapter, it tells you how a war was won. True story.
Ah,
Yeah,
interesting.
it tells you how a war was won, whether it was Napoleon Bonaparte or whether it was Sun Tzu. It tells you all the strategies that they had, which was very fascinating to me. But those are my martial arts book. Okay, let's do top 5 martial arts movies, sir, of all times.
Well, all the Bruce Lee ones are good. They weren't exactly
Well,
wrong.
except the last one, dude. That was so poor.
Oh yeah,
Game of
yeah,
Death. That's so poor, man.
that's true. But have you seen that thing that comes out on the actual footage that they didn't show? That they just show all of that, the whole stuff.
I think I've seen it in YouTube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You can access that, and that part's good.
Yeah.
That's part good. In fact, I think in Game of Death, you see more of the real Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do approach than you see in the other ones.
I agree.
That's his real baby, yeah.
I agree.
So martial arts movies. Okay. I liked the very first Steven Seagal movie, the very first one.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Above the Law, I think.
Something like
Above
that.
the Law.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was good because I have a little bit of Aikido background too, although he does more of what they call Aikijutsu, which is a little bit more violent.
Yeah, he does more what they call combat Aikido.
Yeah.
Which is a little different from the traditional Aikido.
Right.
Because he incorporates some kicks there and all of that stuff and strikes.
I like Donnie Yen's Yip Man movies because I'm biased with that. Outside of the style, I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't. Some of the Chuck Norris movies were good. I like the earlier stuff that he did. I like the one where he fought Bill Wallace. That was cool.
The Force of One. Force of One.
Yeah. So other than that, what I don't like is that some of these martial arts movies where they fight for 3 days, or they're using a lot of wires and they're flying around. That loses my interest right away.
Oh, you don't like Crouching Dragon, Crouching Tiger.
Beautiful story, right? But are you kidding me? Yeah.
So the one I suggested to you overnight, you wouldn't have liked it.
But I got my students saying, Mike, when are you going to teach us how to fly like that? What I do like is that series that came out called Warrior.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
That's really good. I really enjoyed that. Also, Bruce Lee wrote that book called, what did he call it? He called it something, and then they released it as Circle of Iron. David Carradine stole the story. But the actual premise of that movie with David Carradine, if you listen to the philosophy, it was really good. The acting and fighting was hokey, but really good, strong storylines and a lot of good Zen sayings in that one called Circle of Iron. I think Bruce Lee called it the silent flute.
Yeah.
He was going to make it with James Coburn.
It was the silent flute, yeah.
Yeah, but then they never made it. So again, the world was gone.
I'm sorry, David Carradine was one of the worst.
Oh, yeah. Oh gosh.
I mean, the guy, he might as well do slow motion because what he was doing is all slow. They wouldn't even show his leg because he can't kick. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was.
Top. I would put Enter the Dragon first.
Okay.
Definitely. Bro, when I watched that on big screen, I came out of that theater. I wanted to beat up everyone. Seriously, man. Seriously. It's like, what the fuck? That movie is like the influence,
I like that thing with Bob Wall when he does the pop down.
that was like
that's classic, man.
That was classic Wing Chun right there.
Right.
The first 3 moves. Just the first 3 moves in itself, Yes. Enter the Dragon for sure. Return of the Dragon is another one.
Yes.
Chuck Norris movie called Code of Silence.
Yeah, good one.
That was a realistic bar fight I've ever seen. Of course, he got defeated there. Of course, there was like 20 of them. Come on, it's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, And the other one, which I'm biased about, is called The Perfect Weapon by Jeff Speakman.
Movie, yeah.
I'm biased because that's Campo,
Yeah, Speakman, or Speaksman, yeah.
Speakman.
Yeah, Speakman,
Jeff
yeah.
Speakman, yeah. And of course, the fifth probably I would put the Meals of Wheels by Jackie Chan and Benny Urquidez and
I never saw that one. Wow.
Meals on Wheels. You got to check that out.
I will check it out.
Awesome action sequences, dude.
Wow.
Oh my God.
A big Benny Urquidez fan. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when Benny Urquidez and Jackie Chan fought.
Whoa.
Great sequence, bro. Yeah, it should be in Prime or Netflix.
Yeah, Jackie Chan had a lot of good movies. I totally spaced out on that.
Yeah, he's got some knowledge of martial arts. He just wanted to be different, like acrobatics and stuff, which worked.
Have you ever heard of this actor? I think he's Korean. He was always in the Chinese movies. His name was Wang Zhongli.
Yes, I had his only kicking video, and I learned so much from that video, dude.
He was amazing, man.
Yeah.
You got to see him in the movie called Dragon and the Tiger Kids. He literally does a thing where he's running down the road and does 3 kicks in the air before he comes down. Yeah, I mean, he was amazing.
He was pretty much a Taekwondo guy,
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. But, man, I had never seen anybody kick like that.
Man. He probably made the most movies as a bad guy. It's like...
Yeah, he was always a bad guy. And it took like 4 or 5 guys to kill him.
You gotta love the Chinese movies, man. So, a student want to learn from you. He's beginner. How do you start him?
So just like anything, my teaching has become more refined over the years. And so, believe it or not, I don't start him on sets right away. I start him on learning to relax and to just be aware of his center and his breathing. So you're not going to get a lot of combat right away from me. You're going to get a lot of like dancing, a little body awareness first. And then, Now the good thing about Wing Chun sets is they're not combat oriented in terms of, they're not against an imaginary opponent.
Right.
They're basically teaching you how to move in a relaxed, augmented frame type of an action.
Which is good thing now because of the pandemic, you can use Zoom and private lessons and all of that stuff.
I'm thinking about doing that too at some point once I get trying to get some dance stuff online, and then eventually I want to go to Wing Chun and do that. So new student coming to me is gonna get something pretty much like Bruce Lee with Longstreet. We're gonna talk about him, what's inside that person, and having him kind of reach out and find out about himself more, and that type of teaching. Find out if they're flexible, if they can kick, if they can punch, that type of thing. But it's all still the Wing Chun philosophy, but my approach is different now that the older I get, I'm not as good as I was, but I'm a better teacher, I think.
Right. As you get old, you get wiser.
Yeah, hopefully.
You refine the art of teaching, which is I value so much. You know that as a dance teacher and a martial arts teacher, I happen to believe that if I did not become a martial artist and instructing students, I wouldn't have become a good teacher in dancing. Because the way I see it, not to be biased, not to ridicule certain people there, but when I see instructions in the dancing, a lot of things are missing. The breaking down of techniques of the dance is missing a lot, to a point that their foundation is so poor that when you see them social dancing, it shows, not to mention hurting the other partner for that matter, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, that's a big problem. Yeah.
So where can they find you, Mike? Do you have a website?
Yes, I have one called Sacramento Kung Fu on, not a website, but on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. You can call the Del Campo Dance Studio number and always get a hold of me. And I don't teach group classes right now, but at some point, if you're willing to wear a mask and stay doing distance, I am taking private students. With that, always have been. And that's it, Sacramento.
And you have a Facebook account under your name, Mike Del Campo, correct?
Mike Del Campo, yes. And then we have a studio page, Del Campo Dance Studio Facebook page, and then Sacramento Kung Fu Facebook page. Yeah.
All right.
All the same number.
Sounds good, bro. Thanks for the time. I think we went over an hour. It's hard to not. I mean, we have so much to talk about. We haven't even reached the surface of what we're talking about here. But
do me a favor, let's get together because we could talk all day, man.
Yeah, we'll get together again and maybe even bring some other panels. Last time I saw you, we were doing martial arts workshops together.
That was fun.
That was a fucking long time ago.
Yeah.
So one of those days, hopefully, we can do this again. And thanks for the time. I will post this today, ladies and gentlemen. If you like this content, make sure you click like, and if you have not subscribed, just click subscribe. Meanwhile, bye bye for now.
All right, take care, brother.